Hey,
Hey, how are you? Happy Monday, everybody. I hope everybody had a great weekend or a relaxing weekend, if not a great one.
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, we went for a long walk yesterday.
Yeah, not as awesome. But yeah, we went scouting
We
and did recon.
we did
Yeah.
do recon in the woods. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, I know I have legs and a butt now because I've felt the prickles and the pains in every inch of my body from the waist down.
Oh, I was fine. I loved it.
Well,
Um,
I'm out of shape,
yeah,
clearly.
I don't like going, but once we go, I don't mind being out there. So I like it. Yeah, so big show. And we're on
Yeah.
YouTube. We are on YouTube.
Let's
So
see how long we last on YouTube
that's
because
right.
we've been kicked off twice already. And actually, the last time they said we were banned for life. So,
Changed our name, came right back, just came right back. Like the cat came back very next day.
you can't tell us no. We
Yeah.
don't listen to no.
But we'll see if we get kicked off. Their rules are changing on what you can and can't say. They're a little more lax about back in the day. So we were doing hard truths. So Dr. Trozy just typing
Oh,
his name in got us kicked off.
done.
Ba-boom. Yeah. So that
Done
was
and
no
done.
good. Yeah.
But,
So we have no lead-ins. We're just going to go straight into the show. We got a lot of stuff to go through.
well, don't we want to say? So we did the great reset or the great unreset, or what do we call it? The not so great reset. That's it. We did the not so great reset, what, a year and a half
Yep.
ago. And when we went looking, because we talk about doing that show and we send people to that episode a lot. And when we went to that episode,
Gonzo. It's I can't find a copy of it on my computer because we download for backups, and we can't. The episode that is titled "The Not So Great Reset" has nothing to do with the Great Reset. So we're going to chalk it up to. We're not going to go conspiracy theory with this. We're going to say it was somehow a human error on my end, but
I don't know how a different video is linked up to that show.
There's Hesham. You just can't say so and so was such and such on YouTube, or else they'll take your account down. So look, he's trying to get us to say it. Yeah. So that's funny.
That's too funny.
Yeah, here we are, 10 minutes in. We're off YouTube again. Yeah. So it's gone. It's completely gone, and we have a theory that may just be human error, or may not be, because it has something to do with a system called CSRQ, and nobody's really talking about that. And Jody and I have looked into it, and there's some wild theories about it, but at the same time, there's some really plausible stuff as well. So we thought we would go through this again because nobody's talking about it, and everybody who does talk about it seems to have technical issues. So we're going to give it another shot.
Let's see if we're going to have technical issues tonight, or if tonight we're going to be okay.
We'll see. We had technical issues last time we were bringing something important to you. So we'll see. So let's start with what is CSRQ.
Sure.
So here's the theory. Here's the story. And there's a lot of stories out there and a lot of psyops, and this could just be another one of them. But there's a few reasons why we think this is fairly credible. And so a man named Bill Sweet is in contact with, he calls him Gideon, and Gideon is on the inside of the globalist movement. And he is he works within the department that is setting up the CSRQ system. And they are whistleblowing from inside, and they're getting information out, and they've been doing it for a while. Near as I can tell, Gideon and his people are not asking for money for their services, and they've been trying to help people. So I don't know what the grift would be other than to just mess with people's heads, if that's what's going on. So Bill Sweet works with Gideon, and they've been giving out all this information on the CSRQ system. And the CSRQ system is basically universal basic income, carbon credits, social credits, the digital ID, and then what else am I missing? CBDCs.
Social carbon, ESG if you're a corporation, and DIE.
Right. So it's
Or
all in
DEI.
one system. So we've been talking about central bank digital currencies. We've been talking about universal basic income. We've been talking about digital ID, but it's all one system. So it all is incorporated. And we've seen smatterings of this going on in the world. We've pointed to it. We've done several shows on different forms of it. But we all think of it as separate systems. But basically, the story goes, the computers will go down, and then it'll come back up into the quantum financial system. And if you're a QAnoner, then you think, well, that's a great thing, because then you get your whole bunch of money backed with gold.
Well, don't the QAnoners believe in the Sarah Jacera?
Yeah. And so, like, it's, you get your money back, and you get all of your income tax back, because it was corrupt and not a legal system. So when the computers come back up, then utopia. But
sounds amazing.
CSRQ has a different story. When the computers come back up, you're in the trap, and that's it, and you can't get out of it.
Exactly. And you already went through CSRQ. Sorry, it's common, sovereign.
Nope. I got a slide for that.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get to the slide.
Okay, so CSRQ is this. It means sovereign, common, R is restricted, and quarantined is Q, and that's what they stand for. And so basically, you have levels of, if you play along or not, then you have levels of punishment.
Obviously, we will be in the quarantine section, and
Right.
I think most of our viewers will be in the quarantine section. So when we're talking the guaranteed livable basic income, that's what your asset limit is. So you'll be getting $500 a month versus someone who plays along and is lovely and likes the government and says all the right things, who will be in the common. They'll be the $5,000 asset limit. And of course, if you are on the global predator side, you are a sovereign, and there's no asset limit for you, no account limit for you, no monthly allowance, because you get to keep all the assets that you currently have. And not only that, you'll probably be able to buy our assets that we will no longer be allowed to have.
Right. Social credit score, carbon credit score. And then, of course, you need to be vaccinated to get your universal basic income. But the sovereigns, as you see there, they don't have any of that. So that's rule number one for us, or clue number one for us, that is why this looks plausible to us, because now you get approached. Say you're a podcaster and you're on the freedom side, and they come and say, well, you can talk about anything as long as you don't talk about this system. And this is happening. So you either can be a part of this and be in that sovereign class, or you and your family can be relegated down to the lesser classes. Which are you going to choose? Right. So it's a plausible thing, but it's very tangible for a lot of people to want to get on board, because I've always said, like, why are people screwing humanity over without question?
Especially because there's a lot of podcasters that everybody thought was 100% on our side. But then they started, probably about a year ago or so, we started noticing some differences in the way that they did their podcast, or the way that they ran their stories, or the stories that they ran. Or all of a sudden we started noticing them all of a sudden very friendly to particular predators, hugging and singing their praises all of a sudden. So there was this weird switch that happened. And the only thing that we can deduce that down to is that they've been approached. They know that the CSRQ is coming. There's been enough whistleblowers, for sure, talking about what's coming down the pipe. And they were given the opportunity to save themselves, their family, perhaps their friends. And they looked at all of the evidence before them and went, wow, this is happening, whether we like it or not. There's no way to stop it. So I might as well become a brown shirt and save my family. And I will deliver whatever narrative they want me to deliver, and sort of keep one foot in and one foot out all at the same time to protect myself. Sit on the fence.
Right. And so so that's what makes it plausible for me. And then we found this graph today. This graph is interesting. It's from WTF what is it? WTF
happened in 1970.
One, that's right. So it's a
What
bunch of
the
different
F
graphs from
happened in this
1971 till now, I guess 2015 in this case.
Yeah.
And this one's particularly interesting because the green line is being very financially well off as a goal. This is an objective or a goal. So you can see the green line go straight up, but the blue line there is developing a meaningful philosophy of life. And that went straight down. So basically, people's drive for purpose and destiny, which we keep reminding you of. You have purpose and destiny, you have an identity unto yourself, not what the government gives you. That's the drive for that purpose and destiny has gone way down, but the drive for money has gone way up. Right? So basically, the quest for money, the drive for money, the want of money has gone way up, while morals and integrity and whatnot has gone
purpose in
way
life
down, right? So you're less likely to have integrity now than you were in 1971, and you're more likely to be chasing money. So what a perfect time to come along and say, hey, this is happening, you can't stop it. So you either can be a part of it, or you can go down to the cesspool with the rest of them. Exactly. Who's going to choose that? If it's them and their family, like all these people, who's going to choose that? Very few people have the integrity to turn that down.
Well, we know how many people will not turn that down based on how many people said yes to give me this shot because I don't want to lose my job. Or, you know what, I want to travel, so give me the shot. Those are the same people who will 100% would turn in their neighbors in order to be able to buy bread or drive a new car whenever they want. Yeah. Or drive our car.
Right. So
not that anybody wants to drive my van, but you know,
right.
Yeah.
So tonight what we're doing is we're going to show you the cases of the different components of this system and how they're already enacted. And then really the part that is, you know, take it or leave it, could be conspiracy theory, could be psyop, or could be real, is the part that we're not going to have incremental change over the next, you know, we think the goal year is 2030. It's really 2025. So we're kind of in the end zone. So people think, well, they will have incremental changes up until 2030, but it's not. It's going to be a hard reset. Like lights will go off and lights come back on. On Friday, you'll have money. On Monday, you won't.
And how do we know it's not going to happen in increments?
Because we were told. They told us.
They did tell us.
Here's a couple of examples.
Okay.
So people assume we are just going back to the good old world, which we had, and everything will be normal again in how we are used to normal, in the old fashion. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
This crisis has shown us that, first of all, things can shift very rapidly when we put our minds to it and when we feel the immediate emergency to our livelihoods. And second, that clearly the system, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, that we had before is not sustainable. So I see it as a tremendous opportunity to really to have this great reset and to use this huge flows, you know, of money, to use the increased levers that policymakers have today in a way that was not possible before, to create a change that is not incremental, but that we can look back and we can say this is the moment where we really started to position, you know, nature at the core of the economy.
She says it.
Right.
This will not be incremental.
Klaus Schwab, of course, was the first one. That was his daughter in the second one. So their intention is that it's going to be hard, fast, incremental. It's not going to be incremental, as she said. So there you go. So they're already hinting to us that that's the way it's going to go down.
Yeah, we're going to know exactly when in history this happened. Just like if we go to the what TF happened in 1971.com, they've got all these graphs and it all has to do with the year 1971 of what happened. They can actually pinpoint. And we know 1972 is when Pierre Elliott Trudeau held the first World Population Conference here in Canada, and also volunteered Canada to run the first 15-minute city. That was in 1972, 1 year before 1971. And everything that we've been reading suggests 2025. Even when you're looking at if you watch the three-parter of the bank system that we did, 2025 is a big year through all of that. So I have a feeling we don't have as much time as we think to get ready.
No, and we're not fear mongers here, but we're also like trying to help you keep your money, right? So, we're getting into dire straits, and it's time to kind of bring this up. So, CSRQ. This team has been trying to get the word out, and nobody will pick it up. And I actually had put stuff out on social media, and I actually had never really, I don't get a lot of opposition, but the trolls came out to tell me that this was a psyop out of nowhere. So again, that's another reason why I think it's plausible. So here's a video. It's these guys. They have to remain as anonymous as possible. The way they're getting this information out of their locations is really tricky. I have a feeling I know how it's done, but it's very difficult. So they're having trouble smuggling this information out, and they made this video up. It's about as dystopian as it gets, but it really explains the CSRQ system in good fashion. So
openly talking about digital IDs and central bank digital currencies. They are getting people familiar and comfortable with these concepts, but they're not telling you the whole story. They are telling you about the real digital currency that they are creating behind the scenes. The whistleblowers who come forward, who I am representing, have told me that the sovereign accounts are moving billions and billions of dollars every day into the new currency. Now, they call it USDR, but we don't know what it's really going to be called. They have also seen in the software the currency referred to as SDR or XDR and other terms. It doesn't really matter what it's going to be called. We just know it's going to be a one world digital currency. All wealth is going to be completely reset. All debt will be reset. 99% of the world is going to receive a small monthly income, just enough to maintain survival. You will not be allowed to own property, or own assets, or buy stocks, or own crypto. That will be reserved for a very small class of people called sovereigns. And they're going to require vaccination within 1 month after this system comes online. And if you do not comply, you're going to lose all of your money. They will deduct it from your account. Then they will send out the sheriff or a police officer to your home. And they will try to persuade you to take the vaccine. And within 2 months, if you are not vaccinated, they will send in military drones. And the drones are not there to kill you. The drones are there to force the vaccine into your body. They will do it in the dead of night when you're asleep. The drones are very advanced, very powerful. They have dozens of different designs. And they come inside your house, and then they will force vaccinate you that way. This is their plan, and it is fully in motion, and it is coming very, very soon. And most people are not ready or prepared for this information at all. Most are in total denial. Most have rejected it. And there has been a campaign to discredit us that has been successful. And that campaign was spearheaded by a pedophile. And we proved that person was a pedophile. So all of the people who attacked us, who believed the lies about us, they ended up siding with the pedophile. It's just too easy for the cabal to win. The public is too dumbed down. The public is too brain dead. Gatekeepers are controlling the information. The truth seekers are confused and easily duped. There just isn't any time left to stop this. I used to believe we had a chance. I no longer believe that. Because it was too easy for the cabal to discredit us. And many people abandoned us over lies and over what some pedophile agents made up out of thin air. If it's that easy for them to win this battle, they're going to win all the other battles because the public just isn't smart enough or prepared enough. The gatekeepers are in control. The gatekeepers in the alternative media are in control.
So we'll just cut it there because wholly dystopian. I disagree. I still think there's time, and I think there are solutions, and I think we can pull this out. But we have to unify like yesterday in order to have that happen. So we've got solutions at the end. So we're going to end on positive notes, nothing but positive notes. But I know that's hard to swallow. That's a lot of stuff, and it's hard to believe because we just don't think we're that far along.
And it makes sense why, as he said, some of the alternative media have now become the gatekeepers. And it makes sense when you start looking at the evidence, and it's very easy to fall into the defeatist attitude and think that there is nothing we can do. But I will tell you what, if anybody saw CPAC this weekend happening in Washington, D.C., the El Salvadorian president made an incredible speech, one imploring Canada and the US to please stand up and do something because we can still stop it from happening right now. If we all unite and get the information out and talk to each other, we can stop this. And as he said, El Salvador didn't believe it was happening to them when it happened. And they went all the way through the entire process and they fell. But you know what? They have managed over the last 5-10 years to climb out and save themselves. And they are not part of the UN package, the sovereign package. They are not part of that deal. And they are thriving now. Right. So I do believe even if we end up in the hole, I do believe we will have shovels and donkeys to what is it? That one meme I've seen where the donkey falls down the hole and the farmer falls down the hole. And what's he do? He just starts pulling the dirt down and basically the mounds of dirt, and they end up, piggybacking each other out of the hole. And so I think even if we get to that point, because people still are not ready to believe, and they won't believe until it actually hits their bank accounts. But I still believe that we will be able to pull it off and get out. I think I said this in one other show, we can see, it's like a game of chess. We can see 7 moves ahead that we are winning. And we played that video. We are winning. But we still have to play out those 7 moves. And the other side sees that they're going to lose, and they're going to, out of desperation, try everything they can to prolong the game. And I believe that that is truly going to happen. They're going to do everything they can to prolong the game, and they're going to make our lives horrific and horrible. And we are going to want to throw in the towel and admit defeat. But there are so many of us that still has a lot of fight in us. And we're not going to admit defeat, and we will win because we know we win in the end. So
just like that.
Just like that.
I would just stay down there and eat the donkey. That's me. It's too much work. But well, I'll tell you what. We're just going to go through the components really quickly.
Okay.
And then show you that we're a little farther along than most people even think. So we'll just start with this part. This is the carbon credit score. Right now, it's a personalized carbon footprint tracker, which you can download and work with MasterCard to do on your own. Visa's got their own system now. You can also do this on Google, and it can tell you what are the more carbon-friendly routes to take on Google Maps. So right now, it's all voluntary. And this guy is super excited about it. Why are these guys always at World Economic Forum giving these speeches?
Billion consumers. We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So individual carbon footprint tracker. Stay tuned. We don't have it operational yet, but this is something that we're working on. Second thing, we have set up on our platform products that will show what are the carbon emissions if you're buying them. So people can look at what the carbon emission effect is of buying a certain product. We're also setting up a green channel for only green products. So those are 3 things that we're doing on the consumer side.
So it's voluntary. Why would anybody want to set up a system like that? It's going to cost lots of time and money for a voluntary system. It's always voluntary till it's not. Can't believe they're still doing this shtick, to be honest with you.
Right.
Oh, it's only voluntary until it's not.
Until it's
and
not.
they're still pulling that cycle. It's like we don't see it coming now for some reason. So that is the carbon credit system.
Yes.
So they're putting it in everywhere. So
Yeah. Well, they've already got it in if you've been watching us for a while, you'll know that New York City already has it in, where it's no longer voluntary for any building owner that owns a building that's 25,000 square feet or more. They are already being fined based on their carbon credit scoring and the reports that they have to submit monthly. If they're over their allotted amount of carbon, then they get fined per tonnage that they're over. And it's not just theirs, because it runs all the way down to the third parties and their tenants and who they do business with and who they use as their shipping and distribution centers and all of that. So everybody they come in contact with, their score reflects on their score as well. So you got a bad tenant, you're getting them out because you don't want them to negatively impact your credit score.
Yeah, we announced it from the SDG summit that we went to. We said that this was what's going to happen. And what was it, like 3 weeks ago, Google and Amazon said we're no longer working with down our suppliers, our downstream, unless they're compliant. So that's a little more. That's been coming around for a while with the corporate world, and it's easier to make corporations do what you want because they just have to follow regulations, but people a little harder. But we're showing you that the framework is already in place. They're building that framework and they're just making it look like it's all separate. And just so you know, we're pretty sure it's Deloitte that's building all of this in different offices around the world.
Well, according to our federal government's website, it's Deloitte.
It's a partner for sure, so we think they're the ones that are responsible for all of that. So that brings us into central bank digital currency, or do we want to hit digital ID first? Either or, they're both juicy.
They're both good.
Let's go with digital ID. So Trudeau is implementing a federal digital identity program. Now that story came out 6 months ago, I believe. Yeah, I have no idea how all of that graffiti got on there. So they announced that about 6 months ago. And then, of course, we get Bill S20. This has just come out.
S210.
That thing. Yeah. It's like I have dyslexia for the first time.
This is currently going through our, is it House of Commons or the Senate right now? I can't remember where we're at with it. But, it looks all wonderful and it looks like it's to protect
it's gonna save children. Yeah.
But when you actually read it, I think it only mentions like minorities once or twice. The rest of the time it says persons, which is everybody.
Right. So before prescribing an age verification method under subsection 1, governor and council must consider whether this method, and then they give the outlines for age verification method, which really is
digital ID.
Digital ID. It's a fun way of saying digital ID.
Yes, and the government right now has a way for you to sign up for digital ID so that you can make accessing all of your government support websites and information so much easier, because you only need now one username, password. Once you put it in, bam, you get your digital ID, and that's good for everything. It completely authenticates who you are. So don't worry if the hackers take it, because you're already authenticated. So it'll just happily give all your information to them anyway.
Well, but it's supposed to stay anyway.
But it'll save you the trouble of having to memorize, 30 different passwords, 30 different usernames. So it's very convenient.
Digital IDs are linked with bank or mobile money accounts. First sustainable development goal falls with number 1 there. They can improve the delivery of social protection coverage and serve to better reach eligible beneficiaries. So they're making it, here are all the advantages of digital ID. Better access to money and services if you have digital ID, like it hasn't been working just fine.
But if you notice, it did say delivery of social protection coverage.
Yeah, I mean,
social
safe and protective, right?
Safe and
safe and
but social protection tells you they're bringing in a social credit system.
Yes. Yeah. And then that brings us to KTDI, which is now it starts getting a little worse, because it's not just Canada. KTDI is the known traveler digital identity, and you can't go anywhere without your KTDI, and they're partnering up with World Economic Forum. Canada's partnered in there, government, Netherlands, a whole bunch of people, Air Canada, Accenture. Every time we research Accenture or Vision or global stuff,
Accenture always comes up.
Accenture is always there. So Royal Dutch Airlines, Toronto Pearson Airport, Schiphol. So all of them are teaming up to get this known traveler digital identity going. And then if that sounds like it's too cumbersome, well, they have these little boxes. These are
and we saw these boxes in the Netherlands.
We did, and they add eye scanners or face verification. They're actually using facial scanners now. They're kind of doing a system of that when you check in with your passport and whatnot. It's your fast way to get through. So and facial recognition is part of that. But your face is already on your passport, so I'm like, what do I care? Right.
But they are using facial recognition out on the streets, and anybody who's been to any rally or protest in the last 3 years see all the lovely little police cruisers that come out with their facial recognition scanners on the top. So
right, but wait, it gets better, because in China they've taken digital ID to the next level where you can pay with your digital ID. This is a man who's getting facial recognition in China.
So he can buy toilet paper?
Not buy toilet paper, just get it in a allotted amount so he can use it in the toilet. So you get your toilet paper and then you go in and you use it. So, and then this guy is paying with his face. Trying to pay face, that's what it's called. Pay face.
It's giving permission for him to use and buy that stuff.
Right. So for all you naysayers, well, that's China. China's off the hook with their control grid. Here's the U.S.
Whole Foods, and I'm about to pay for my groceries with my.
She's so happy.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Cool. That's so cool.
And here's Portland.
Please look at camera for entry.
Facial recognition in use.
So it tells her she's got to stand on the spot,
Oh,
hit your
stand on
mark,
the shoes?
and then look up. And then it lets her in. So it's using facial recognition. If you notice, it said Portland there, and I forgot to take that title off for the Schwab video. you saw Portland come up. So
Yes.
yeah, that's my bad. So there you go. So
But not only that, Canadian corporations right now are being held to the CSCS standard, which is the China social credit system. So if you are a business here in Canada that does business with China, you also right now are.
we have a slide for that.
Oh, we have a slide
We're
for
not
that.
It's its own thing. We're not there yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun.
Yes, you are.
Sometimes I get so excited about things that I just can't hold in what I know, and I
Right.
just want to diarrhea it all over you.
Gross.
I know.
So that is your digital ID, and that's one component of the CSRQ system, or this new system. And here's CBDCs. There's so much here. So Bank of Canada is not planning to launch digital currency, at least for now. And they put that out Ottawa October 18th of last year. At the same time, exact same time, they were working on Project Jasper.
Well, and at the exact same time that their patents came through for Canadian digital currency.
Project Jasper, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So we're building the capability to issue a digital version of the Canadian dollar, known as central bank digital currency, that Canadians can trust and rely on. Ultimately, the Parliament and the government of Canada will determine if or when to issue it. And so they're saying all this, we're not going to do it. But they were
But we're ready for
literally
it.
getting the patents at the same time they were saying that.
Yeah.
So here's some of the patents. And then I'm going to take us off here. I'm going to just make that solo because
So people
there's the
can
link at the
see.
bottom. So it's right there on the Bank of Canada website. It says the FinTech projects, Canadian Digital Dollar Project Jasper. So, I mean, they've been working on it for quite a while. I mean, they started it and they said in 2017 on that website.
Yeah.
Phase
Yeah.
1, I think, was 2017. So they were out and out lying publicly when we caught them out on it. And then XDR, as they mentioned before, it's going to be the XDR or SDR, and we'll sort of explain that a little bit. SDR is special drawing rights. We had a video going into it, but it's long. And special drawing rights is used by the IMF. And this is the thing, I think this is the biggest thing that drives us crazy. When people are talking about the World Economic Forum or the World Health Organization or the UN, they're saying that these are the problems. But the hierarchy, the top of the top is the IMF or the International Monetary Fund, and then also the BIS.
Well, I was going to say the BIS is the top.
Right. And the Bank of International Settlements. Right. So people don't, it's funny because we talk about signing away our medical sovereignty to the WHO, and then talk about giving away our like state sovereignty and political sovereignty to the World Economic Forum, but we don't talk about our financial sovereignty, which got signed away by who? Trudeau Senior. Yeah, this family has done more damage to this country. So Trudeau Senior signed away our medical or our monetary sovereignty to the IMF. Back in the 70s. So the IMF issues special drawing rights, which is basically a loan for countries. It's a tokenized loan for countries that they can use to, get out of debt or improve their economy if they need to. So it's a loan.
Or when they have a natural disaster, they can pull on that as well.
Right. So it's a loan. And so the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, is described as the central bank's central bank. So they're the ones that run the whole show. And when we talk about these things, we don't talk about the IMF or the BIS. And that drives us nuts. Well, we do.
But most people don't. People like to say they're awake, but are they really when they don't know any of this? And when you try and bring it up, they don't want to talk about it.
No. So going back to this, the XDR, he mentioned SDRs. SDRs are special drawing rights, but those are for countries. XDR is a new IMF product for people, special drawing rights for people, not to be mixed up with the XDR crypto. That's a whole different thing. But this is going to be basically a digital currency or a cryptocurrency on central blockchain that runs through the IMF or the BIS. And it will be for person to person monetary transactions. So basically that's the Unicoin or the World Coin that we're seeing now.
Right.
And we believe it's run on the Ripple engine, right? Don't we? Don't we believe that? Yeah, we do. So yeah, that's right.
I don't know. We start getting into XDR and crypto and blockchain, and my head goes, oh my gosh, there's so much. So I totally get why people don't want to talk about it, why they don't want to face it, and why they want to blame Trudeau and Klaus Schwab for all of our headaches. But it's really not. It's so much deeper and so much more horrific and so much darker.
Right. So we've put up this banner. I'll see if Michael's on it. The atlanticcouncil.org. That's the CBDC tracker. And so you want to see CBD projects all around the world. That's where you're going to find it. Oh, there you are. Right on the draw. So if that's where we found out about Project Jasper, and that tells you where each country is at with these CBDC trackers. On one hand, it's a useful tool, and on the other hand, I think it's a breadcrumb to lead you away from the actual thing that's going on. And the actual thing that we don't realize is that all central banks are going to run through one global central bank, and that's at the BIS. So that's a lot farther ahead than we think it is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, if we start looking at all of the dates we're seeing dates for 2025, not 2030. We're seeing dates of March 11th. Now, what that means, I don't know. We've seen March 11th come up on our federal government websites.
In weird ways too, yeah.
In definitely weird ways. We saw it come up, wasn't it? There was a video that I sent you. It was like, I don't know, 25, 26 minutes long. And right around the 21, 22 minute mark, it mentioned something to do with the Federal Reserve and March 11th. Lo and behold, we went to go back and grab that video, and I was now blocked from accessing that website.
I think the owner geo-blocked it because he was getting a lot of hits. So I found it through my VPN, and we got it back. That's fine. So CBDCs, now here's why they're a problem. If you have a control grid system, you do not want to be on CBDCs. And here are the people implementing CBDCs, working on the actual systems they're telling you about themselves.
A unified ledger with CBDCs can make full use of the ability of central bank money to knit together diverse elements of the financial system. In this sense, the full potential of tokenization can be harnessed by having central bank money reside on the same venue as other tokenized claims.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like say ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC.
The third way we think CBDC can improve financial inclusion is through what we call programmability. That is, CBDC can allow government agencies and private sector players to program, to create smart contract, to allow targeted policy functions. For example, welfare payment. For example, consumption coupon. For example, food stamp. By programming CBDC, those money can be precisely targeted for what kind of people can own and what kind of use this money can be utilized.
A key difference with the CBDC is that central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also we will have the technology to enforce that. Those two issues are extremely important, and that makes a huge difference with respect to what cash is.
Absolute control.
Right. Now, that little guy in the middle there, he said consumption coupons. I honestly think that was a mistake. I'm not sure he was meant to say that or should have said that, because what that alludes to is that you will get rewards for playing nice. And so they, not only will you get punished if you don't play nice and you'll get kicked down the road to, restricted and then quarantined, but if you do play nice and you get along and you're a good little boy or girl, then the two options there, then you'll get a reward. And they'll reward you. You get Starbucks, or you get Tim Hortons, or you get something, and the little perks keep you running like a dog.
Well, they do that in Cuba. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they have townsfolk that rat other townsfolk out when they bring in, like, say you are one of the people who are lucky enough to have a hotel job, and you bring in stuff that hotel guests have given you, or by chance you make friends with a hotel guest and you bring that hotel guest back. You've got people in the neighborhood that will rat you out, and the police will actually come to your door and take that stuff. But those people get an extra, orange or an extra thing of gas or what have you for ratting you out. So that is what's going to happen. Or, as we alluded to in our part 3 of the
money trap,
the internet of bodies. You do a couple extra jumping jacks, you're going to get yourself a coffee that day.
Right. Or just get paid. But at the same time,
you might get something other than a cricket for your meal.
Right. How fast are people going to police themselves? People say, well, they can't enforce this, but people are we've seen it already. They're going to enforce it themselves. We've seen.
It's the same as them saying, they can't force me to get a vaccine.
Oh, see you later, YouTube. With China, one person in a whole block, in a 15-minute city block, one person ignored his warning to go get vaccinated or boosted or checked, or I think it was tested. It doesn't do it. The whole block gets locked down, and they know who did it. They know who got him locked down. So they're going to self-police. People are just going to self-police, and then you add rewards for snitching.
So police officers out there, if you think you're keeping your jobs, because right now you've complied and you've followed the orders and your morality went out the door when it came to following your orders. Think again. They already have the AI bots, 1, to replace you, the DigiDogs, 2, to replace you, and 3, the people are going to be rewarded, so they're going to replace you too. So you might want to start standing up and taking part with all of us. Just something to think about.
Right. So that leads us into social credit, and we've been basically what we've been talking about. Your credit. Social credit is basically how well you play along. Do you denigrate the government? There's a really great Black Mirror episode on this with Bryce Howard, and basically her day implodes. She has a bad day and she starts getting bad ratings, and her social credit score keeps going down, and they had perks based on your credit rating because you're bigger influence and whatnot. And it's a really good episode. I
just like the end of it when she's in jail and
Spoiler alert,
finally free.
Yeah.
And she says the F word, I don't know how many times, but she looks so happy and so like,
yeah, exactly
amazing.
right. So that's coming. So we're already starting to see it in the corporate world. China's corporate social credit system, how businesses can prepare. This is a manual for Canadian businesses who want to do business in China. And so this basically lays it out on how you need to prepare, because they have a social credit system and you have to be in line with their system.
And the crappy thing is it points out how it's a domino effect into your third parties. The customers you deal with, the shipping, manufacturing processes you use, the companies that you use for that, who your vendors are, who your customers are, and even who your employees are. That's how deep it goes in China. And if you don't think it's coming here, you need to maybe put your thinking hat back on.
With the digital ID, we've already seen their systems are going to become our systems. We've already seen it. So there's this is a website you can look up the corporate credit information. So it tells you if that corporation has had a serious breach of law. And just like with the carbon credit, their social score affects your social score.
Correct.
So if you work with them and they have serious breaches of the law, as they say there, then
you don't want to work with them.
No, it's going to affect your credit score. And then down there you can see the Unified Social Credit Code or registration number. So you can actually look up if they're good people or bad people. Do they go against the government? Do they speak out? Do they tell the truth when they're not supposed to? Yada, yada, yada. So you'd say, well, it's not coming to Canada, but it already has. And that's, that's something that I overlooked. In the social credit system arise in Canada, basically this story goes on to talk about the Emergency Measures Act and people whose bank accounts were frozen. So they froze. You did. They
froze
monetary
the bank account
punishment
because of your ideology and because you hung out with or financially supported, even if it was $20, you financially supported, you got a slap. Actually, you got more than a slap. You got the belt across your whole financial banking possibilities. You got the belt with the big elephant brass buckle on it.
Butt in there somewhere, but you didn't.
I did it. I kept it clean.
But that's not the only. We reported on this about a year ago. FCC or the Farm Credit Council, Farm Credit something.
Farm Credit Canada.
Farm Credit Canada. There we go. They were told to monitor and report on anybody who had donated to the convoy, and there was potential to withhold their credit, meaning that they couldn't do proper farming the next year and it was going to kill their farms. And they said, Blacklock's put this story out, FCC has not compiled any list with respect to the Freedom Convoy prior to the Emergencies Act being revoked. Now, if you don't know Blacklock's, they are actually legitimate reporters. These guys are not biased and they tell the story and they know their stuff, and they would not publish it unless they had several sources and could verify it 100%. So they would never have published it if they couldn't prove it. And so then they had responded. The FCC didn't respond to questions yesterday and is not telling the truth today. FCC is lying and it knows it. That's just the fact. So with all of that aside, again, that is a social credit score that affects you monetarily.
Exactly. So you didn't think we had it, but we do. And anybody who got an 880 ticket during the lockdowns here in Ontario, you know it too, because all of you are now in court for all of those tickets and you're getting spanked right, left, and center. So yeah, I'm so sorry to my dear friend Graham, who I mentioned on Thursday, was back in court on Friday, and he beat two of the 4 charges he got. Unfortunately, on Friday, the judge did find him guilty of the next 2 charges. Same judge that let him off the other 2. It's amazing how one judge can flip flop. But yeah, so and Callum McDonald, you know, his court case at the end of January, he just got spanked as well for going against the government mandate, and all they did was go outside. They were outside on the street. They just went outside when the government said you're not allowed to. And my dear friend Graham was outside, and he had the sign, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, on his little buggy and a Canadian flag on his buggy. And he got a ticket. Doing nothing illegal, just being outside with a Canadian flag and Charter of Rights and Freedom.
Right. Yeah. So I forgot this. The only problem with Blacklocks is their news is paywalled. Yes, that is a problem, and it is very expensive. But you know, we're actually going to probably buck up and eat the cost because they do a lot of good work.
We do lots of good work too.
Oh, of course we do. So we should paywall everything, is what you're saying.
We probably should, but we don't have the teams.
We need you to get this information out. So no
teams with an S that Blacklocks have. It's just Cris and I, and hey, we should say this. Thank you to our viewers and our friends and our family who also send us stuff that we may not have seen, because sometimes it's like, oh, wow. And it'll send us down another aisle that leads us to more information that we bring to you guys. So thank you to everybody who finds stuff that's out of the ordinary, not on the mainstream, and sends it to us, because it allows us to further our research in other ways.
Half the time our research is accidental. So just to tie up the social credit system, when you think you're looking one way and you should be looking the other way. Here's Chrystia Freeland. This was right after they invoked the Emergency Measures Act. And this was before they pulled back on it. This was in that 3-day window where she was still in the middle of it. And this is what she said about it.
In terms of the financial instruments, which our government is using right now to act against these illegal blockades and illegal occupation, we reviewed very, very carefully the tools at the disposal of the federal government. And we used all the tools that we had prior to the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and we determined that we needed some additional tools. Now, some of those tools, we will be putting forward measures to put those tools permanently in place.
Permanently in place.
See, we're all traumatized with what they were doing to the truckers that we didn't notice that so much. So yeah, they're going to keep some of those tools permanently in place, whether there's an Emergency Measures Act or not. So
they're telling us without telling us that CBDC is coming. They just haven't told us when.
Right. There's a couple more videos. Now, this should have gone with the carbon credit. I knew that it was a little light, that section. But so when we talk about the carbon scores and whatnot, and carbon prisons, here's a great example. And I love how they came out heavy and hard, and they're punching hard with saying you conspiracy theorists, and then they completely validate them. Amazing. I don't know what the plan was, but I can guarantee you they do not have a PR team, these people.
These conspiracy theories are causing real world harm and need to stop. We have been receiving many calls and emails from worried residents in genuine fear that they might be locked in their own homes. This is categorically untrue, and we're talking to you today to explain the truth. To reassure residents and set the record straight, we want to be absolutely clear. We are not planning a climate lockdown or a lockdown of any kind.
The traffic filters will be installed as a trial on 6 roads in Oxford in 2024. They will not be physical barriers. They're not steel walls or electronic gates. They're simply traffic cameras that can read number plates. If a vehicle passes through, the camera will read the number plate, and if you do not have an exemption or a residence permit, you will receive a fine in the post.
But we're not locking you in. We're not locking you in. That's absolute balderdash. We are not locking you in. You're just going to get a fine if you leave. But you're more than welcome to leave. You're just going to have to pay for it. And by the way, because we'll have the CBDC in, it'll just automatically come out of your bank account. You won't be able to fight it.
But there goes your carbon score. There goes your social credit. Yeah, it's a digital prison, but it's a prison nonetheless. And they thought that was a good idea. We're just going to set the record straight. We're doing exactly what you think we're doing.
Right.
So that leads us to universal basic income. We know it's here. We know it's coming. Target 1.3 of the no poverty SDG goal in the UN. Implement nationally appropriate social protection systems and measures for all, including floors, by 2030 achieve substantial coverage to the poor and the vulnerable. You got to read between the lines, but that's exactly what they're talking about. They're talking
CBDC.
about UBIs.
Oh, UBI, sorry. Yeah.
Universal basic
guaranteed livable income.
That's what it is here. Yeah. And then, so they're the two bills here in Canada that are currently going through the House. An act to develop national framework for guaranteed livable basic income, and Bill C-223, an act to develop a national framework for a guaranteed livable basic income.
Two bills just to make sure they get through.
Right. The Senate put one out and the House of Commons put one out. Two bills on the same issue. So
just to confuse everybody. So when you're celebrating, going, yes, we beat one, you forget that there's another one.
Right. But how odd that they're putting two. Well, they seem to be doing a lot of these in tandem a little bit here. So there you go. So they are absolutely pushing that through 100%. It's just a matter of time.
And remember, the regulations don't get voted on, but because they put in there social, environmental, health, and education and employment, those will all be part of the regulations and the rules of who gets the guaranteed livable income and who doesn't. 100% control.
So we've got this video from Robert Kiyosaki. If you don't know who that is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's been a financial advisor for a long time. He wouldn't be fringe theory at all.
No, he was 100% on the other side until about a year ago. And then his eyes started to open. Even a year ago, he didn't know who the WEF was or what they did. But I'll tell you what, I watched his show and he kept saying the WTF or and his co-host, I think her name's Susan, had to keep reminding him it was a WEF. And he's like, yeah, but it really is WTF. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. So here he is here learning all about where this all came from.
Kissinger have to do with Klaus Schwab? That's my
and the
question.
whole Great Reset.
Yeah. So I think I reference quite often what Henry Kissinger said, which was maybe a warning to the world, but I think it was more of a call to arms on their side. So he said, if you control the food, you control the people. If you control the energy, you control a continent. If you control the money, you control the world.
So is the intent evil?
In the Communist Manifesto, number 5, he had 10 points. Number 5 was the creation of a central bank.
Right.
So central banks are part of Marxism.
Of course.
That's the whole goal.
Yeah.
And that's what I wrote in my manifesto. The central bank is communism, central controlled economy.
Yeah.
The American system, not Americans, but most people are completely uninformed.
Oh, totally uninformed. Totally uninformed. So let me ask you this. You know, there's a lot of talk about what you do and how you prepare and how you get food and you buy gold and all of this. But there's a bigger what to do. What do we do? How do we, is it possible to turn this thing around or?
Yeah. So it depends on what you're trying to do, right? So if you're just trying to protect yourself and like, can I go live on a mountaintop, protect myself till I die?
Yeah.
Or am I going to try to save the world? Right. And so I'm trying to save the world, right? We're on different things. In the book, the Uncommunist Manifesto, we did our same 10 points. And point number 4 was the abolition of any and all central banks. So we just say, we need to end it. Obviously you guys are educators, and I've now become an educator. And I think that I think good ideas win because they're better. And I think if we can have good, intelligent discussion, then we can turn the tide on this thing. And so I think that we need to highlight how bad and disastrous these ideas are, and then show that there are better ideas out there. Now, they've done a really good job of taking over the education system. So when communism was defeated in the 70s, and really started in about the 60s, it kind of went underground. And it came into the universities in the United States. And so they've done a really good job playing this long game, and they started with changing the college age kids' viewpoints on these things, who have now moved into media, who have now moved into government, who have now moved into finance.
This goes back to what, the 60s?
The 60s, yeah.
That's good, because how many times do we highlight the SDG goals summit where they're saying like we got to get into the universities and reframe things? So they're saying like people kids today don't want to join mines because it's not environmentally friendly, and the mine says, well, we need to get into the universities and reframe that. And so they target the universities. We know they do. We know they're targeting the elementary schools and the high schools. Yeah. So that's something that we need to get better at, and just take the education back from the agenda driven, the narrative driven, and maybe just be fine with protecting the kids so they can just learn math.
And that was one of the things that Mark Moss, who was the other gentleman in that video, he said, I've not been to college, but I know how to read. And I learned what I wanted to learn for the skills that I needed to do the things I wanted. And he said, I'm a self-made man because I learned how to read.
Yep, exactly. Me too. And now I'm a doctor. No college
you
whatsoever.
think you're a doctor?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'll try. We'll see how it goes after my first surgery.
You definitely could have advised people better over the last few years.
And you did. Yeah, thank you very much.
Because you knew how to read.
Yeah, well, I knew what to look for. So there's that.
Well, you only had to go to one or two websites. It was fairly simple to figure that out.
Well, it took me hours. Don't minimize my work. So there's that. And then I think we've got one more clip. I couldn't fit it on there, so I'm just trying to kill time while I find it once again. You can talk and cover me off if you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I feel like as a mom, now that I know what I know, I feel like I did my kids a big disservice, because, we were watching a video of this doctor earlier today before going into the thing. And she was saying, oh my gosh, I feel sick to my stomach. I was wrong. And I talked to all my friends and my family members into doing this. And she has this great big giant following on YouTube or whatever it is. And she did a live 6 days ago and said to her people, I'm wrong, and here's why, and presented all the evidence. And it was an article that was written with Peter McCullough on it, and a few other people, Steve Kirsch, and I think there's 4 other people. But anyway, it was peer reviewed, and somehow it came across her desk, and she is now sick to her stomach because she didn't do her research, because she didn't read. And she said the biggest thing that she has just learned is not to trust the government anymore, not to trust her regulators anymore, not to trust the pharmaceutical companies anymore. And she is eating a lot of crow, but you can see that because she did not take 5 minutes to read one website, that she's done a lot of damage. And as a parent, I think a lot of us did that and continue to do that, trust those that we shouldn't. And we really need to start trusting our gut and just reading. Just because someone has a PhD after their initials or LLB after their initials does not mean that you can forego your job of being an informed and participatory citizen. You still need to do your homework and do your own research. We all know how to read, or at least I think we all know how to read. So get reading. Get reading.
So, hey, we had the grab screen up there. Hi, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Hello. I was just going to jump in there and fill the space too, because earlier when you guys were showing, I think it was the digital ID slide, one of the points mentioned that the age verification or the information would be used only to verify age, and then the disclaimer was within the law or something like that. And the way that most people read it is like, okay, the information will not be collected if it's not legal. But does that mean they can write a law that then makes it so that they can collect the data for other than the age verification, right? So yeah,
Correct.
it's all.
Well, and when you look at the fine print of most of the government legislation, most of the government websites, it says, and our third parties, but it doesn't list who their third parties are, and it doesn't list what those third parties are going to do with the information either, and it doesn't list who those third parties affiliates are either. So yeah, and as we've learned, government is like double speak. They say one thing, but really they mean like 50 other things.
Right. And I don't know if it's been a normal thing all the way along, but I've only noticed it since the last few years, that they're writing laws, and instead of defining the laws, they're just saying all these regulations, punishments, punitive measures, they can be worked out in the separate camps. Like this minister can do this, or this regulatory body can do this. So they're no longer writing laws. They're just making it so the little camps, the little kingdoms, can make their own laws up about the whole thing, and they're just giving them blank check to do that. And that's kind of disturbing, because none of these people are elected.
Well, and not only that, they're now starting to bury things within other acts. So a lot of things, the one bill that everybody 100% should read through with a fine-tooth comb is every time they present the budget. Because it used to be back when they were presenting a bill in the House, it had to be simplified and only deal with one thing at a time. So the bills were really short, they were easy to read, and they only dealt with one thing. And somewhere along the line, and I did read when it happened, I just can't remember when it happened, somewhere along the line that changed so that now they could deal with multiple things in one bill. So now instead of getting a bill that's 1 or 2 pages long, we're getting bills that are hundreds of pages long, and the people just aren't reading them. Even our parliamentary people are not, our MPs are not reading these bills, and they're just letting it go through. So what Parliament has learned, or our global predators have learned, is if they want something that is highly controversial to go through, bury it inside the budget, because the budget is typically like 500, 600 pages
2,500
long,
pages.
Which is where they buried the supplements amendments in section 500 to 504 of the budget bill.
Right.
That was like on page 168 or something like that. It was crazy.
Right. Well, enough of problems. Let's get into solutions now. It's been dark, so let's start with this one. This is Mark Moss again. Mark.
To join, people need to stand up. You're standing up. We're standing up together. Some people are a little bit afraid. What would I say to them? So I would say, one, my grandfather was decorated in World War II, right? His Marine base got bombed. My father flew jets in Vietnam. I thought I would just go to war one day. That was my lineage. Look at those boys storming the beach in Normandy. Their friends are getting blown up by them, and now today people are afraid to say something? So I'd say, first of all, stop being a victim, slap yourself and pull your boots up. But for those that are still afraid, then just support other people who are willing to stand up. And so if you want to do it anonymously, then do it anonymously, but at least do something, at least support others who are willing to stand
up. That's a very good point. That's really good point. I just go, meow.
I wanted to not comply with the whole, lockdowns and all of that. And I didn't want to be arrested, but I saw some people were willing to be arrested, and I was donating money to those people to help them with their legal funds.
So it's an info war. Here's our very favorite best friend in the whole wide world, Catherine Austin Fitz.
Back explain that with CBDC as a replacement or a digital currency, they can make the rules of how the currency is used, and they can enforce the rules centrally. Let that sit in centrally. So one great activist said that the implementation of the passports is the end of human liberty in the West, and that is in fact true if we let this control grid go in. Robert F. Kennedy says you can't stop tyranny by complying. And so what I ask you, we cannot comply with the mandates, we cannot comply with the passports, we cannot comply with any part of a financial control grid whether they change the name from passports and do it with biometrics and ID, whichever way they do it. So this is the fight for freedom and liberty. And what I will tell you again as an investment advisor, most of our wealth in the West comes from the benefits of freedom. And when you give away freedom, you give away anything. When the World Economic Forum says it's 2030 and you have no assets and you're happy, what I hear is it's 2030, we have stripped you of your assets, which may include stripping you of your children, and you're mind controlled. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let that happen.
So she's big on cash Fridays, only use cash on Fridays, 1 day a week. She's saying even that is disruptive enough to the banks. Now,
well, she's big on using cash every day.
Right.
But she understands for a lot of people that is too hard to do and not convenient to do. So she's like, Fridays, cashless Fridays, or cash only Fridays, sorry.
So what do you think, Maya? Should we comply? Should we just comply, give in, and just take it? No? Okay, no. You heard it here first, folks.
Nope. Don't buy into their incentives and their reward programs, because all they are tracking you and learning what they can bait you with and how they can take you down further, what's important to you.
So we said we don't believe that we're out of time. We do believe there's a solution. We've been working on this for the last week and a half or so. We're fleshing this idea out and we're ready to launch this on an official scale. We'll run through it right here. Here it is. Does it look that? Take your money out of the bank. Step 2, use only cash. Step 3, stop paying taxes. Now, we've said this last week. When we say stop paying taxes, wait. If you do it alone, you'll get picked off. You'll get picked off like a weak gazelle. So, and that also, we can't really advise you to do that because that's not technically legal. So we wait on that one. Number 1, take your money out of your bank. Now, we have no problem actually broadcasting this plan because there's nothing they can do about it. And that's the best part of this. Take your money out of the bank. You watch how hard that is. The bank is going to give you a lot of trouble. And I want you to document that. I want you to document, and I want you to put it on social media so everybody can see that their money is in jeopardy.
And don't sign the literature that they're going to bring out for you to sign. Our dear friend Larry went into the bank to take out $6,000, and the teller asked him why. And he said, well, that's none of your business why. It's my money. I just want to take it out. And she said, oh, well, how about I give you $3,000 and you come back tomorrow? And he said, how about you give me $6,000 and you do it now? And she said, well, I have to call my manager. And he said, fine, call your manager. So the manager says, yeah, that's fine. They have their little discussion. She comes back and then has like several pieces of paper with all these guides, principles, clauses on it that she wants him to sign. And he looks at this and he says, what's this? And she said, well, I need you to sign this before I give you your money. And he said, no. 1, I'm in a hurry. 2, I don't have the time to read all of this. It was several pages long. 3, I'm not signing this. Just give me my money. And she said, well, sir, if you walk out of here and you get robbed or you lose it or something happens, then it releases the bank from any liability because they gave you so much money. And he said, so you're telling me if I walk out this bank and I get robbed, I just need to come back in? You're going to replace that $6,000? And she said, well, no, we're not going to do that. And he said, then I'm not signing your paperwork. Give me my money so I can get out and go. So they are making it right now excruciatingly difficult for you to take your own money out of the bank. And that tells you you're over the mark.
Right. So here's what's going to happen when this happens. We're going to give you a couple examples of how money rules the world. There was the story of Walmart where they stopped taking cash.
Yeah.
And what was it? 15 people went in, loaded their carts up and got to the till and they said, well, sorry, we don't take cash. And they said, fine, we're not going to shop here then. And they all left. And they left their carts full of groceries and walked out. And next thing you know, next day, Walmart is taking cash again. That's one example. But if you remember back over when the Emergency Measures Act came out, we had instructed, we collectively got together and instructed everybody to start taking their money out of the banks. And they did. It was the one time that we've actually seen people unify en masse over something like this. And they did. And ATMs went down. The power went down. Rogers went down. ATMs went down. You couldn't take your money out of your bank. And the banks freaked out. They shut the system down. And it wasn't 12 hours later that they revoked the Emergency Measures Act.
Yeah.
That's the kind of power the banks have. And we've seen it
Or the
actually.
kind of power we have.
Well, we have over, yeah. So the bank has the government's ear. So here's what would happen. If we all took our money out of the banks would freak out.
Yeah.
There would be a media campaign to discredit anybody doing that. They'll throw words around like economic terrorism. They'll throw all sorts of weird words around because they're freaking out.
Yeah.
When you use only cash and you're not using their credit cards and you're not using debit cards, then they don't have.
They have no power.
They have no
over
fees
you.
coming in.
They have no fees and they can't track you. They have no idea where you are. They have no idea what you're buying. They have no idea who's getting your money.
Right. This is going to come with a list of demands from the government because we want greater transparency. Here's why it matters. Our lunatic government is going to drive us to the brink of nuclear war. They are willing to go to that level with Russia, and Russia has now alluded to nuclear war. They're willing to go down that road and watch us all fry because Chrystia Freeland has some sort of vendetta against Russia. I don't think the rest of the world needs to burn over this. So our government needs to start listening, period. So we are going to have a list of demands, but that gets backed up with taking your money out of the bank, using only cash because we defund the banks now. And then, and only then, if our government doesn't listen, then we collectively together stop paying taxes. And they can't possibly enforce that if we're all doing that, all of us. And then we defund the beast. This beast is out of control and we stop funding the beast. How comfortable are you being on camera with us at this very moment?
Michael, I see the smile.
I'll share my story about when I pulled my money out. I didn't have a huge, large,
Go for it.
Yes.
Sorry, I thought I was double muted. Yeah, I pulled out some money and I had to extend my daily limit to take out what I wanted to take out. And so I called them up and I asked them to do it. And they were very, I don't know what they would have done if I said no, but they said, this is the only time, right? And I could hear the concern in her face that she thought this was going to be like a recurring thing. So they were concerned for sure.
Yeah, Senior Canuck said he went through the same stuff at his bank, the Royal Bank, that Larry went through, where they didn't want to give him his cash and then wanted him to sign off on all this paperwork. He also says that they would not sell him gold. Royal Bank would not sell me gold either. That's interesting because we know that the banks right now are going hog wild buying silver and gold, precious metals, because we know the asset-backed banking system is coming into play. They're all going to be forced to do it. And we also know the billionaires right now, if we've been watching what the billionaires are doing, they are selling off their stock and they're purchasing not only bunkers, but gold as well.
So the plan is very simple. And normally we wouldn't broadcast plans to the enemy, but at this point they can't stop this. If we all do this, there's nothing they can do about it. And the beauty of it is, the more you put this out on social media and show how hard it is to get your money out, people are going to get nervous, and it's going to cause a cascade effect. So they're going to start doing this en masse. There's going to be runs on the banks. The two ways that we fund the beast more than anything is through the banks and through taxes.
Yes.
So the banks are making money left, right, and center, hand over fist, out of nothing.
Yeah.
And the taxes, we're seeing where it's going. It's ridiculous. They're not
coming
accounting
from our
for
pocket over to Ukraine's pocket. That's where they're going.
Right.
They're not even helping us.
No, at the same time as saying like they're going to support MAID for the mentally ill, for the depressed, when it's a budgetary issue. It's not, they
can't afford our
they have the
healthcare
means.
system.
Yeah, they have the means to fix mental health issues, but it's too expensive. So it's a budgetary thing. While at the same time, they're telling you to kill yourself on the same day. They're saying they're giving them another $3 billion to the Ukraine. And they're going to give $3 billion to the Ukraine to bolster the war against Russia, who's now talking about nuclear war. These people have lost their minds. They're out of control. And this government has got to get stopped. And this is how we do it.
Yeah.
These are hard measures. It's non-confrontational. You're not doing anything illegal. Take your own money out of the bank and tell everyone to do it. Be adamant about it. Let's get this going. I know we're going to be campaigning this like the next 3 weeks, like crazy.
Exactly.
We don't have time left.
Now, Adam says, I remember trying the same thing at TD Bank as Michael said, and the teller said that she had a limit as to what she could let me take out because she was a new employee. She had to tell me to get ID and stuff. So I just asked for $100 less, and it really ticked her off because she canceled the $1,500 transaction, and it made her look like a money launderer. She was truly divided, and he conquered.
Nice. Nice.
So see, even the bank tellers don't know what to do. And I know when I went to the bank to take out money, I asked for a certain amount, and she was very concerned because she didn't have that amount to even give me. And then she said, but I can give you this much. And then if you go to the ATM, I'm going to increase your limit for this one time, as Michael said, for this one time, so that you can get out exactly what you need. And I said, okay. So that's what we did. And I managed to get my monies out. And I'm sure she thought it was probably for buying a car. She didn't ask me, though, what it was for.
I never tell them. I'm like, am I required to tell you this? Yeah.
But remember, I'm standing in front of her. I've got my wallet in front on the till or on the counter. I'm ready to pull out my ID because I'm asking for a significant amount, even though she knows who I am, small town. She's in the bank every time I'm in the bank, and I go in the bank a lot. And instead of asking me for my ID, she punched a bunch of stuff into the computer and then said, okay, pull out your phone. I just sent you a verification pin to verify that you are who the name on the debit card is that I put through. And I looked at her and I went, what? And she goes, it should be coming through on your phone any moment now.
This is easier.
And then sure enough, I look and there's the verification pin that she just sent me. She said, can you give me that number? So I read her the number and I said, why did you do that? I'm standing right in front of you. I could have very easily handed you my driver's license. And she said, yeah, but this is easier.
So
I'm thinking
ridiculous.
easier. My ID was right here. I would have handed it to her a hell of a lot faster than the process she did. So they're already training their bank employees not to recognize your face, but to do everything on your phone.
Right.
Cut out that social interaction.
Right. So I can't stress this enough. If we start taking our monies out of the bank, it stops the Basel system. They can't do bail-in at that point. They'll be freaking out over that because they have to use your assets to cover their asses. And so if we do this now, we win.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah.
We get ahead of it.
Right. And so they're going to freak out. But the thing is, there's nothing they can do about it. And if banks stop you, if they just flat out refuse to give you your money, that's going to cause a lot of people to finally wake up, because you can kill seniors and kids. You can corrupt children in schools all day long. But if you mess with somebody's money, that's when the problems begin.
And just think, if you take your money out of the banks, how are they going to send Zelensky that $3 billion that they just promised? Because we all know how the banking system works now, because we've been watching our show for the last few Thursdays. And right now, they loan money out based on the money that we put in. So the banks don't actually have any money.
No.
It's our money anyway. So if we start pulling it out, the banks have no money to hand over to Trudeau, to hand over to Zelensky.
Right. And we're very carefully crafted set of demands. We start getting the government to actually listen again. It's always been available to us. Solutions have always been there. It's just a matter of unifying. And I don't think people have been ready until now. I think they're finally ready. And there are way more of us than they would have you believe. So I think the majority of the people can speak by their money. So, yes.
Did you put up Luann's comment?
No. What's this one?
We have a pilot friend, travels the U.S. for work. Customs doesn't even need his passport anymore. Facial recognition. They just take a pic with their phones. Passports no longer needed. So, folks, we said it was already here, and lo and behold, Luann just supplied us with a little bit more information about it being here and actually functioning.
Right. Okay. So thanks, Luann. Thank you, everybody, for watching. So that's it. It's a hard reset into the CSRQ system. We think that's the way it's going. I'm pretty
and whether
convinced.
it's CSRQ or Nasera Jacera, at the end of the day, it's about control. It's about the central bank digital currency. 100%, they're telling you what to do based on social credit scores, based on carbon credit scores. The time to act is now. As the El Salvador president said, do it now. Don't wait till later. Don't wait till all your money is gone, because then it's a really tough, long haul to get out. You can get out, but it's going to be a long, tough haul and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in order to get out. So do it now while we still have the ability to say no, and we still have the ability to fund ourselves.
I think we've got about 2 to 3 weeks left before things matter. So, and if it's Nasera Jacera and it's utopia at the other end of that dark tunnel, then fine, we don't have to worry about it. That's how I feel about it. But until that is proven true, I'm going to keep fighting with everything I got. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you on Thursday with not a pre-record.
Love you all.
Bye, everybody.